WRHT, Morehead City, New Bern, Jacksonville. Live at 96.3. Online at ThunderCountryOnline.com. And on the go with your mobile device. You're waking up with Rayford and the Thunder Country Morning Show. Rayford and the Morning Show. 96.3. Thunder Country.
Doctor, what's the sign when somebody has to stretch like Joe just did? I mean, is there any kind of a medical reason for doing it? Fatigue? Is that what it is?
Getting
Joe, you're going out, Joe.
Last doctor said it was schizophrenia, so I'm glad to hear that.
Welcome back. It's 8 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. We Dr. Griffin's in the house, of course, this morning, and we have a young lady in here who had an issue or two when we started talking about this melanoma. And, she's, 60 years old or something?
I'm thinking like 27, 8.
About 23?
31.
31, wow.
Which is very young.
28 when I discovered the melanoma.
You had melanoma when you found out at age 28?
Yes, sir.
What did you go through? That had to be a heck of a story. How did you find it? I mean,
Well, basically, I noticed an area on the back of my left leg that was different than my other moles and freckles. It had a red tone to it, and it was raised a little bit. And it just stuck out, and I actually showed it to my mom and my husband, and neither one really thought it was anything I needed to be worried about. But I am a worrier, and I did continue to worry about it. So I actually showed it to my primary doctor and my OBGYN, because at the time I was 38 weeks pregnant. And neither really were concerned about it as well. So it was on my mind nonstop. At the time, I did not see a dermatologist, so I just looked up local dermatologists and I started calling them. At this point, I was a week away from being induced to have my son, so I just called dermatologists, told them my situation and that I needed to be seen that week, which is kind of hard for a specialist. Everyone could see me months later. I finally called and had a dermatologist that was nice enough to work me in. And so I went in and she removed the mole, and I left with a great peace of mind and didn't think that I would ever be hearing back from them. The following Tuesday, I was in labor, and I had 2 phone calls from a number I did not recognize, and then the number started calling my husband. So we answered it, and it was a dermatologist herself, which is never a good sign when the actual doctor calls you. And
that's not true. I love giving good news. I call people sometimes during dinner.
To give them good news?
Yes.
Oh, but that's good. Well, good news is okay.
But not bad news during labor.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she did say, in fact, it was melanoma. So that started my melanoma journey.
I'm sorry to interrupt, was it melanoma or was it like melanoma in situ, which is like the beginning stages?
No, it was melanoma. It was actually stage 2 melanoma.
Okay.
Yes. So, and it did not look very big. Now for me to have a 10-inch scar on my leg, it was very small. But I was discharged early from the hospital.
Define small.
The way I always describe the way the size of the mole, it would be to like a tip of a pencil, very small.
And was it changing? Did you notice it changing at all?
It was new. It was new, and it was raised and red. Yeah. And from I often got asked, does it hurt? It never hurt, but it would like tingle from I could feel some kind of sensation that was.
And you bring up a good point, because a lot of people, even physicians, think that melanomas automatically have to be dark black and ugly, and there are some melanomas that appear not necessarily black or have other things mixed in with them. That's what scares me as a physician, because that red hue may have been something like a hemangioma, which is completely benign, mixed in with that.
Right.
So
it's pretty interesting.
Obviously you got this somehow. Did you figure out how you contracted this melanoma?
No, if I did know exactly what it was, I wish I could pinpoint that and take that back, but I can't. But I did, from the age of 3, all my life, played sports and soccer, was outside, very active. And then, unfortunately, when I was in high school, and getting ready for prom, I did lay in the tanning beds. and that, I wish I could take that back, but I can't. So I don't know exactly what it is, but I didn't properly care for my skin.
Were you addicted to sunning or tanning in a booth, or?
Not addicted, but I did feel better about myself when I was tan. It made me feel like I looked better, which now my perception of that is so different.
What advice would you give to women?
My advice would be just to pay attention to your skin, and if you do notice something, even if everyone else seems to think it's normal, have it checked out by a professional, because 50% of melanomas are actually discovered by the patient themselves. And I had someone one time in a checkout line said, "Oh, you smell like sunscreen," and I do, and I don't care. I'm proud of that.
Every day, even in the wintertime.
So yeah, I do would recommend sunscreen, makeup with sunscreen, anything you can do to protect yourself.
And this is just my personal opinion from a family physician standpoint, but I always, for example, if I have a patient who comes in and a lesion looks benign, if it's going to give them peace of mind and it's changing in any way, it's very quick to do a biopsy and send it off and see what it is. And that's just my personal opinion. I know others differ on that, but
well, it gives them peace of mind too. If if it's gone and it comes back and you can call them during dinner and give them good news.
Exactly. I love giving good news.
And that's all I was searching for, was just that peace of mind. So that's why even if you go and it is nothing, it was worth going to have it checked out.
Right, exactly.
Doctor, if we find something that I find on the back of my leg, something like she's talking about, and then I decide to self-treat myself, get the old pocket knife out and whack.
No, please don't do that, because well, number one, it leads to infection when you're doing that on your own at home, because you're not using sterile devices. And then also too, if it is something concerning, we're not going to get the pathology on it, and it's still going to be there underneath the skin, growing. So
we have a caller, Steve. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm fine. You have a question for us?
Well, a question and some statements and facts, I guess. This has been something I've watched very closely. I live on the Crystal Coast, near Morehead City and everything. And one thing I've been concerned about is and I'm going to kind of play the devil's advocate here, it's a pretty known fact now that every country that vigorously promotes sunscreen has the greatest rise in melanoma in the world. And doctors think there are several reasons for this. One is because of the chemical that is used, which is a benzophenone that counteracts with UVA rays. And also the sunscreen only blocks the B rays, not the UVA rays, which are more damaging to the skin. And then third, that sunscreen gives people a false sense of security that they are no longer in danger, so that they stay in the sun longer, and that increases your risk of developing melanoma. So I'm really on the fence about sunscreen. I think it's kind of almost like, the beast that bit the dog. It can be bad also. And I'd just like to hear your doctor's opinions on that.
Well, that's a good point. I don't know about the increase because of sunscreen, because of the chemicals, but how about the, do we get a false sense of security and we've decided we can just go out there and make our brains even more so when we got sunscreen on?
I have several comments regarding that. When I was speaking with Dr. Abraham earlier regarding the most recent literature on the parabens and the helioplex and things like that. For example, Neutrogena is one of the sunscreen brands that promotes that. There are articles out and studies that suggest parabens can quote-unquote cause cancer. However, everything that I've seen has shown that the parabens do not penetrate the skin deep enough to increase that risk of cancer. And in fact, that they do help protect us from the sun. There's also sunscreens that do protect UVA and UVB rays. And then also, too, I agree with you that sunscreen can give us that false sense. For example, we don't reapply. We think we apply it once, we're good. We stay out for 8 or 10 hours in the sun, no shade, no cover. That's not the way to do it. I wouldn't say it necessarily increases the risk in countries that promote sunscreen, that's a behavioral thing, and we need to educate the population better and not only apply sunscreen every day, but also to avoid spending a long time in the sun. I hope that answers your question.
As a melanoma survivor, I do use sunscreen, but I do a combination of things as well. I don't stay in the sun for prolonged periods, and I also have started purchasing all clothes that have the protection in them as well.
Yes, the clothing is a big thing too, because a lot of people don't realize when they have that just white cotton shirt on, they're not putting the sunscreen on underneath it, but you're on the boat for 10 hours, you're going to get scorched. So.
Answer your question, Steve?
Answered it, yes. Convinced, not necessarily, but I thank them.
All right, Steve, we appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. All right,
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
What was your name again?
Yes, thank you so much.
Nicolle Johnson,
Nicolle.
yes, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time that y'all have given me to raise awareness on melanoma.
And everything's looking good for you now, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am no evidence of disease or cancer-free.
Do you go back on a regular basis to get checked?
I go to Duke every 6 months to have a full body check.
That's a real good key, guys. That's a big deal too. Don't it's gone now, but you just
gotta keep an eye.
Keep in touch with your doctor. Dr. Griffin here. She can help you out too.
Mm-hmm.
She can take care of me for sure. Dr. Onslow Primary Care.
Yes, 3280
Henderson Drive.
I can give out our number too. It's 910-219-1713.
I got it on speed dial.
Tell her
You usually just text me.
I send her a text and she takes care of it that way. Anyway, Aaron, thanks for coming in.
Yes, thank you guys.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
I
And
enjoyed
Joe's
it
going to see you
Yes,
next week.
I'm going to co-host next week. I'm kind of scared.
We gotta nail down the date.
Yes,
Okay,
we
that's
will.
right there. You go.
We will.
All right. Nicole, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, ladies. Let's take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk with another guy who spends a lot of time outdoors, too. And we talk about what's happening out there in this world for this weekend. You're live and local in the morning show in Thunder Country. We'll be right back.
Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point presents